Now, government doesn't begin to compare when it comes to the change and improvements that provide better and less expensive services and products. Can't compare with the private sector. But among governments, by the way, the states and localities are more responsive than the federal government, probably because there's some degree of competition between them. With states, after all, there are 50 that compete with one another, and localities, there are a lot of them as well. But by far the slowest and least responsive sector is the federal government. Has no competition that it recognizes. Nobody hears Washington, D.C., that home of efficiency. And just imagine if the federal government was the sole legal supplier of cell phones. All right? First of all, they'd still be under review. All right? You'd be listening to hearings in Congress on cell phones. And when they were finally approved, the contract to make them would go to an Obama donor. And of course, they'd come out looking about the size of a shoe with a collapsible solar panel attached. All right? Campaign donors would be lining up to see who could get appointed to become the app czar. All right. My point is this, and it's an important point. As President Obama and old school liberals like him absorb more and more of our economy into government, the government gets bigger and bigger, and the private sector, which is efficient, gets smaller. Then everything we do becomes more expensive, less efficient, less useful. Government makes America less competitive. The more government, the more expensive it is. What President Obama is doing is not bold. It's old. As president, I want to make the federal government simpler, smaller, and smarter. This was part of the brilliance of the founders. They recognized that individual people, citizens, pursuing their own dreams, would be able to create a stronger, more vibrant life for the American people than the government. And that's why what I'm describing is consistent with our Constitution. This is why I don't for one moment share my opponent's belief that our spending problems can be solved with more taxes. You don't owe Washington a bigger share of your paycheck. Instead of putting more limits on your earnings and on your options and on your enterprises, we need to place clear and firm limits on government and on its spending. And as I said, right now the federal government spends about 1/4 of the entire economy. I want to bring that down to 20% of the economy within 4 years. So by the end of my first term, we've dramatically scaled back the intrusiveness and the size and borrowing of the federal government. Now, the President's plan assumes an endless expansion of government, with rising costs, and of course with the spread of Obamacare. I will halt the expansion of government, and I will repeal Obamacare. Now, working together, we can save Social Security without making any changes in the system for people nearing retirement. We have two basic options to do that. For future retirees, no change again for current retirees or near retirees. One would be a tax increase for high-income retirees, or high-income retirees to be. The other would be to decrease the rate of benefit growth for high-income retirees to be. Now, I favor the second option because it protects everyone who's in the system or near it. And it also avoids higher taxes that drag down the economy and make it harder to create jobs. I've also proposed a plan for Medicare that improves that program and keeps it solvent and slows the rate of growth of cost in health care. Both of those reforms are relatively simple compared to the far more difficult choices we're going to face if we do nothing. And of course, Medicare and Social Security are also very easy to demagogue. And I expect the President to continue doing that throughout the campaign. But Americans are onto that game. And I'm not going to insult the voters by pretending that we can just keep putting off entitlement reform. I'm going to continue to speak honestly to the American people. And if elected, I will do what is right for the people of this great country. to rein in redundancy and waste. Think about these numbers. In 2011, the Government Accountability Office found 34 areas where agencies, offices, or initiatives in the federal government had overlapping objectives or providing similar services. The GAO estimated that reducing the redundancy could save over $100 billion. Yet a year later, only 3 of the 34 areas has even been fully addressed, and only 1 program has actually been defunded. In 2010, 17 federal government agencies gave $7.7 billion more to the United Nations than is required under our agreement with the United Nations. Another example, there are 94 federal programs in 11 agencies that encourage green building. A report found that the results of those initiatives and investments are, quote, unknown. We see the same bureaucracy and overhead in our anti-poverty programs. Last year, the federal government spent more than $600 billion on more than 100 different anti-poverty programs, all of them designed to help those who couldn't help themselves. My approach to federal programs and bureaucracy is entirely different. Move programs to states or to the private sector where they can be run more efficiently and where we can do a better job helping the people who need our help. Shut down programs that aren't working. Cut them off. Eliminate them. Get rid of them. And then, of course, streamline everything else is left. It is time for the people of America to take back the government of America, and we're going to get that job done. Entitlement reform, doing away with the redundancy and waste in government, and shifting services and programs to the economic player who can deliver the best. These are the serious steps toward getting our debt and spending under control that I'm going to take. But above all, we need to shake off the static, big government mindset of these past few years and all the limits and regulations that go with them. We need a big turnaround here, and it's going to require a focused, unrelenting, long-term agenda for economic growth. Instead of leading the world in how much we borrow, we've got to continue to lead the world in how much we build and create and invent. With all that we've been through these last few years, the challenges can seem awfully big. And some might look at America and wonder if we have lost our confidence. But confidence isn't what's missing. All that's lacking now is the right direction and leadership. These have been years of disappointment and a decline. And soon we can put all that behind us. We can prosper again with the powerful recovery we've all been waiting for, the good jobs that so many still need, and above all, the opportunities we owe to our children and our grandchildren. All this can be more than our hope. It can actually be our future. It can begin this year in the choice you make. So I'm asking for your help, your support, your vote on the 6th of November. This is a critical year. This is a decisive year. This is a year where we decide what kind of America we're going to have. With larger and larger government, less and less efficient, more and more expensive, more and more borrowing, a nightmare mortgage, crushing our future and the future for our children, or instead returning to the vibrance and power of America as we know it. I'm convinced that you're going to see in this nation a resurgence in our manufacturing sector, a resurgence in innovation, and startups and new businesses creating new jobs. My vision for the future is a bright and prosperous one. We're not weighed down with the problems of the past if we have a leader who understands the potential of the future. With your help, working together, getting Iowa in my column in November, we can get America back on track so you can be confident that your children and theirs will have a brighter future than even what we've enjoyed during our lives. Thank you so much.